عالم الطريق لطلب العلم الشيخ سطحان. The Shaykh, he continues in discussion about times which are wasted when he said الأمر الرابع, the fourth timing, بين الأذان والإقامة, between the adhan and إقامة. And he says من الأوقات التي فرطنا فيها, الوقت الذي بين أذانين. That a time most people waste is that time between the two adhans. And this is a time, he says, that if you were to estimate the time for between Dhuhr and Asr, for example, between the Adhan wal Iqama, لصلاة الظهر والعصر والعشاء والفجر. So take all the salat, لوجدت أن بين كل أذانين ثلث ساعة. Perhaps you find about 1/3 of an hour, so about 20 minutes. And this is على he said على هذا على أقل تقدير. This is according to the smallest estimation or duration. And if you were to take a look, he says that what someone can do in a sa'a wa thuluth, right? This amount of time, which is like 1/3 of it, or between the Salat al-Maghrib, فإن وقت القصير بين أذان وإقامتها. And this is if you will take a look then at other timings like Salat al-Maghrib, between the two adhans, the time is small. But in the summary, he says, whoever is keen on spending their time between adhan and iqamah, in qira'at al-Quran, reading Quran, سواء مراجعة, whether doing muraja'a, review of hifz, or memorizing that which is new, that person سيحفظ شيئا كثيرا من كتاب الله. You'll be able to memorize a lot. And he says this time period, if someone were to be consistent therein, لمدة الشهر, for a whole month, he will find that he will be able to calculate the total amount that he has, 40 ساعة في الشهر. He has about 40 hours in the month, right? Just between the adhan and iqamah alone, which he can spend in the hifz al-Quran. And then he says, then the Shaykh, he says, if you were to then take a look at now at our own situation, you will find most people are not able to read the Quran except rarely. And this is the time which is exempted from it, is Ramadan. Right? We may Allah honor it, which is the time most people are dedicated to the Quran. So he says that therefore a person, he should pay attention to the time between the two adhanains, the adhan and the iqamah, and should be seizing that opportunity. For it is a time which a lot of people, and due to this, the reason why people miss this opportunity though is because they come late to the masjid. And he says you will find one of us, perhaps he will come and he will only arrive just as the iqamah, just before the iqamah, or when its wording is being pronounced. And this, he says, is an opportunity missed. And this person who was missed not only the rewards of sitting and waiting for the salah and the malaika recording for him that, or the reward of coming early for salah, or coming to the first row. All of these are things that he's missing by coming late. Then he brings an example of Salaf. And this is a good example we find in the books of Salaf. He says, and it becomes the biography, he mentioned Tahdhib, in the biography of Ibrahim Baymun as-Sa'igh. And this Imam, it's mentioned about him, Yahya bin Ma'in. He says, rahimahullah, كان نجارا, this Imam was a carpenter. وكان إذا رفع مطرقة وسمع الأذان لم يردها مرة ثانية وإنما بادر للذهاب المسجد. That he used to be a carpenter and he used to work with a hammer. And while he's in the middle of striking with his hammer, if he heard the adhan, he would not continue. He'll stop, would put it down and go to the masjid. And this is reported also in Sunan Abi Dawud under the hadith number 3254. And the meaning of the hadith, of this athar, Ibrahim as-Sa'igh. Abu Dawud says, rahimahullah, كان إبراهيم الصائغ رجلا صالحا قاتله أبو مسلم بعرندس قال وكان رفع مطرقة فسمع نداء سيبها. And he mentions the same narration. And the meaning behind this narration, this Imam, why would he do this? Al-Azim Abadi rahimahullah in Awn Ma'bud, he says, Tarak Ibrahim, he used to leave off the hammer when he was in the middle of the work in preparation for the salah. To prepare for the salah. وَهَذَا ثَنَاءٌ مِّنَ الْمُؤَلِّفِ. This is a praise of Abu Dawud for Ibrahim as-Sa'igh. And he says that what is intended is that he didn't allow his work to busy him from dhikrullah. Rather, he would hear the adhan, he would stop work and go for salah, just as Allah describes in the Quran about the believers who don't let their business distracted from the dhikrullah in the jama'ah. So this is a good example how the Salaf would take care of that timing. So the Shaykh's advice then is for us to take care of that time by coming to the masjid early and using that time to do Quran or review or other types of benefits. And to add to this, he says, قال أبو حامد الغزالي رحمه الله, Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, he says, فيما نقل عنه زرخشي في إعلام المساجد, as reported from him by Zarkhashi in his book إعلام المساجد, كان أول ما أحدث الناس, the first thing the people have innovated is التأخر عن صلاة الجمعة, that the people have come with the new practice of delaying coming early to Salat al-Jumu'ah, whereas the awa'il, the early generations, يذهبون للجمعة, they used to come out for Salat al-Jumu'ah بسرج في أيديهم, with lamps in their hands, يعني أي مبالغة في تبكير لها, that they used to come to Jumu'ah so early, they used to come out with lamps because it was dark, يعني it was like literally like early morning. And this obviously to emphasize that coming early has that value of using that time, because many people waste it. So the Shaykh's advice then is to take advantage of this time, and in accordance with what you're able to do, by coming early for the reward of coming early for Salah, and also it will allow you to have more comfort and relaxation and tranquility for your body, as well as a lot of benefits knowledge-wise. It means you're early, you're not panicking, you're not racing to come to the masjid. You sit down, you have extra time, and you do that review of the Quran or use it. So this is the fourth one where people waste that time. Al-Amr al-Khamis, he says the fifth time people tend to waste is the al-Qira'atu hurra. The fifth opportunity of people that waste is the Qira'a al-Hurra, free reading. And what he's mentioning here now is the opportunity to use your time, the wasted time to do readings of different books that are not necessarily in your curriculum, but you are learning from these books to increase your knowledge. And this is important. Student knowledge has different timings for things. Time for memorization, time for review, time for reading what he's studying the books he's studying, time for the class, and time for free reading. And even the Shaykh will come later, time for browsing the libraries, the makatib, what's going on right now. The Ma'rad Kutub, the book exhibition in Saudi Arabia is already happening. So people are just looking at the new titles available. So he says that students should have time for just this free reading. And he says here that a time period, many of us we can busy our wasted time with, or what we can spend our time with, is bi qira'ah, with free reading. And what is he meant by this is that person will make a small amount of his time in his house for reading. And this will be different for each person. يختلف الناس بين مستقل ومستكثر. People will have different levels, some more, some less. So some of us, he says, are married, so therefore they have children. And so they're obviously busy preoccupied with tasks and needs. So then he says, that person, وَهَذَا الْإِزَامًا عَلَيْهِ, this is necessary upon him, that he busy himself with that time. But then he mentions now a narration to show this, that people, because of the differences in their busyness, everyone will have opportunity to spend their time. So he says, example, the one who is busy when he gets married and has family, he has less time. So he says, Sufyan al-Thawri rahimahullah mentions, was narrated from him, كما نقل عنه Ibn Jama'a. Ibn Jama'a reports in his kitab Tadhkir to Sami' that Sufyan al-Thawri said, من تزوج, whoever gets married, فقد ركب البحر, he has riding on the ocean. فإن ولد له, if he is given the blessing of a child, then وإن ولد له, if he is given the blessing of a child, ولد, a child, فقد كسر به, then he has been drowned with the ship. And the Shaykh says, وَالْمُرَادُ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ, what it seems to be the intent of this statement, وَاللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ, is a person who gets married, he's busy, he has business now. And therefore, he doesn't have the ability to do, right? لَيْسَ عَلَى هَذَا عَلى إطلاقه, it's not general, unrestrictedly, but the case is he's more preoccupied than the one who doesn't. So therefore, in his house, doesn't have that much time to do free reading, versus someone who is not married. And this narration itself, Shaykh Abu Amr Hajuri, he says in Isnad Hassan, and his tahqiq of kitab, Tadhkir to Sami' of Ibn Jama'a. So Isnad wa Hassan. This is an authentic narration from Sufyan al-Thawri. So just showing us that everyone's dhuruf and situation is different. So if you know, for example, you have less responsibilities, then you spend more time doing those beneficial readings. And Shaykh said, I'm surprised at some people, some of our brothers who, they're one at home, and often you find them at home, and you find them that he's not busying himself with that which is beneficial. Rather, he benefits himself that which is wasteful or that which is a calamity, whether reading newspapers or magazines 1, 2, 3 times over. And some of them, they busy themselves, right, with this. And he says, but if he takes a book of knowledge, right, to read, he feels some kind of tadayuq, yani some kind of restriction. Meaning the person, when he's wasting his time, he's mashallah. When he gets to kitab, he gets tired. And some of us, we notice that, right? Shaitan, he knows everyone. But in Insan nafsi basira, we know ourselves best, and Shaitan, he knows us too. So when it's on YouTube or just on the phone, we're just wasting time. When it comes to ilm, we say, oh, I'm tired. So the Shaykh saying this is a problem. So some people say you go to the class, for example, majlis, of ilm, right? Or a majlis, whereas ma'muran is full, bilqil waqal. If someone goes to a lesson or gathering, these people are saying backbiting, talking about other people, wa kalam mubah, and even permissible statements, then suddenly someone says, give me this such and such book, the person starts feeling restriction and tightness. He says, if you know this about yourself, then know that this is due to a sin that you have committed, and this is really a calamity which you've been afflicted with. And this is how some people they are. When it comes to the things they have to do, they can't do it. So we have to pay attention to that, because as the Shaykh said before, what's between us and the Salaf is not the means and ilm, it's a tawfiq min Allah. Right? Yes, their ambitions were higher than ours. They worked harder than us, but we have more means than them today, the easiness of it. Right? They worked so hard for what we have today, but what's the problem with us is this reality. So if we notice this, we have to make tawbah ila Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from any sins. Then the Shaykh talks about time management. He says, وَلَقَدْ حَدَّدَ أَهْلُ الْعِلْمِ Some people of knowledge have determined timings كخطيب البغدادي وابن جماعة أوقات لحفظ بالقراءة ولكن لا ينضبط. يعني the timings that they suggested for memorization, reading, are suggestions, but they're not, you could say, applicable to all people. It means they're not a fixed program. لأن الناس يختلفون. People are different. And this is a good benefit, because if you go to the Kitab ibn Jama'ah or any other books of Adab Talib Ilm, they talk about what time to memorize, what time to read, what time to do this. And it doesn't suit everybody's schedule. Well, for some of us, we work, we have different timings, we're free. So what the Shaykh's advice is that this, anybody says who they find themselves, for example, you find yourself eager, or you have a time off after Fajr, then use that time to read. Use that time to read. And if it becomes difficult for you, then you said, then leave it, right? For that, if someone finds it difficult in that, then he can go, right, to the durus or other things like take a nap, and later on he could do his reading. Some people, he said, they can read, like they prefer reading at night, right? 1 hour, right, before they sleep. Right? They go to sleep early or sleep late, they read before they sleep. And he says these are examples of timings. Everyone knows themselves best, and this is good advice. Everyone fills the time according to what's in their benefit. So it's not restricted to a particular time, although Fajr time is, after Fajr is a definitely good time. But some people like to do hifd early and read late. And that could be an example, right? Easy, right? After Fajr is blessed time, so hifd becomes easier. And then as your energy levels go down, just read, right? You do some reading. And what do you do, he says? How you're going to do it, he says, whatever time some prefer in the middle of the day, you pick a time which you are able to, right, to do this, and you take 1 or 2 books and you read them, and you research an issue in them and you write it down. So really, it's a program. So you have books that are not part of the curriculum. These are your free readings. You read this book and that book. Books ulama advice. And what do? You read this book, you read a mas'ala in it, you write it down, you research it, you keep it there. So later on you can benefit from it. And it's a must, as will come later. Talib ilm has to be doing bahth. That's where most of the ilm will come. So durus are just a little bit, right? Just a little bit. The classes are not going to be enough. You need to do more. So student knowledge has time for that, and that time could be the dead time. For some people now with the technology in their phone, you have a whole library in your phone. So when you're standing in line doing nothing, you're just doing a research, looking for something. And that's how we should be. Talib ilm should be different because he's busy trying to benefit. But sometimes you notice also that if we don't have the schedule, it's going to go with your mood, right? Today what I feel like. And how your books are not read like that. So you have to try your best to do what the Shaykh is saying, make time for it. And it's an important lesson as well, that there is the classes, then there's things you're memorizing and learning, that's your curriculum, then there's the stuff outside of it. That's the stuff that you have to do. No one can have the mutala'ah, reading, reviewing. And so like we said, there's even time to look around the new books, what's going on. And now we have Telegram channels, all the kutub are there. So you're just eating your breakfast or you're not doing anything, you're just taking a look, seeing what's available, saving this one, putting one there, here, because later you might need them. That's important. Sometimes they go missing. Or you look at what's the new publications, what's the new print in this kitab. And these are things he's going to talk about later for student knowledge. طيب, now the Shaykh moves to the next chapter, min adab talab ilm. He moves now to the chapter of the etiquettes of seeking knowledge and student knowledge. And so this was the beginning, was the introduction, now is the etiquette. He says that the student of knowledge, or the seeker of knowledge, is in need of certain etiquettes to be adorned with. He is in need of following the footsteps of the righteous, pious predecessors in the acquisition of knowledge and their etiquette along with the acquired knowledge. He's in need of knowing how they used to stay up at night and abandon the pleasures of bed, yani sleep, in pursuit of attainment, which the seeker of knowledge strove to gain. And his travels with his teachers, his peers, and his students. And this topic is complex because knowledge is a vast ocean with no shore, but the deficiency is not in the books, as many of us have dozens, even hundreds of books. The deficiency is not in time, as some of us have, most of us have many, right? Many of those and much time in books. But knowledge is the light that Allah, He casts in the heart, and is not achieved by reading a lot nor acquiring a lot. Rather, it's something Allah gives to whomever He wills. And to prove this point, He brings this example. Imam al-Haramain al-Juwayni, he says, rahimahullah, that it was reported from some of the Shafi'i that he said, ما من شافعي, there is not a single Shafi'i scholar إلا وللشافعي عليه منة, except that he has some fadl, or there's a virtue on top of him, right, that's owing to Imam Shafi'i. So there's not a single Shafi'i scholar who owes, except he owes something to Imam Shafi'i, except for Abu Bakr al-Bayhaqi. Except for Abu Bakr al-Bayhaqi, فإن له منة على الشافعي, for he has done a favor for Shafi'i, لتسانيفه في نصرة مذهبه, due to his books in his defense of his madhab. And this is mentioned by in Ibn Hajj Tadhkirat al-Hufaz, Afwan Dhahabi. So here we can see that this kind of statement, the Shaykh's point is that this great Imam Abu Bakr al-Bayhaqi reached that level of knowledge. He says he wrote a book, the biggest book in the Hadith Ahkam, Sunan al-Kubra. Sunan al-Kubra, Imam al-Bayhaqi, is 25,000 hadith. Right, so one of the biggest books written, bigger than that one, is Muslim Ahmed, you could say, but in terms of Hadith Ahkam, it's probably the biggest. It is the biggest. Yet he says some of the narrations he couldn't find, or he wasn't able to attribute to their source, which we have today freely available to us at Ibn Majah and Sunan Nasa'i wa Jami' Tirmidhi wa hakadha. All these books that we have, that he couldn't find those asanid. Remember, everything he narrated with isnad. He says then, the Shaykh, that this point is that's something that will prevent him from seeking and acquiring knowledge. This will not prevent him, rather. So he sought knowledge, and first of all, it requires sincerity. So besides that, he did all the other effort. So he did all that effort, yet we have all this. So what's the difference between us and them? Is the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the effort. But the Shaykh says one who has intention is ikhlas, sincere intention, and he puts in his effort. You need to put in the effort with your body and your time and your nafs and yourself and your money. Then all this together, inshallah ta'ala, you'll be able to reach with these asbab, that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes easier for you by exerting all the efforts. He makes easy. Allah makes easy that which is difficult. And this is the reality, right? The adab talib ilm are supposed to be the mechanisms to let us to reach the goal, which is knowledge. So all the books the scholars wrote about the chapter of adab, of seeking knowledge, it's all supposed to help you reach the goal in the proper form. It means the proper knowledge with the proper character, with the proper ability to transmit the knowledge, how to earn it or gain it, how to behave, and all of this. And these are important books. This is one reason why we're reading this book, to remind ourselves of those etiquettes. So now the Shaykh says that someone should know, if a person does not have, should know, that, and he doesn't have knowledge in his place, he should travel in pursuit of it. So if a person doesn't have knowledge in where he lives, he should go out looking for it, and he travel for it. And it's for this reason, it is stated in the hadith, it's a hadith da'if, but the meaning of the hadith, young men will come to you seeking knowledge. If you see them, then give them the glad tidings of goodness. فَإِنَّهُمْ وَصِيَّةٌ to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For they are the testimony or the bequeathment of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This hadith is da'if. But the Shaykh says what is meant by this is that a person should travel to seek knowledge and to revive, right, or to look for, or revive, the landmark and legacy of the early Salaf that many have abandoned and many have given up on. And it said so, by doing this, you have emulated this to people before you. Means in the past, until today, rihla, traveling, talib ilm, was always the way of the Salaf. But many ulama mentioned today's time with ilm also available, there are tiers, knowledge when in your place and knowledge away. So a person has to benefit from where he is, and then he makes his way to gain more knowledge by traveling to the ulama and the centers of knowledge to gain more knowledge. And the Shaykh's point here now, he says that if it was said, and it was said that whoever guides to goodness will receive a reward similar to one who doesn't, and a reward may follow the one who does it, even though the reason for it might not be known. And then now the Shaykh brings some example how the Salaf would travel to learn adab from the ulama, right? Just not just the knowledge, the adab. And it was called the semt. So literally semt could be best translated as decorum, right? The decor, how does the Shaykh carry themselves. He says, Dhahabi rahimahullah mentions in his siyar that a group of people will gather with Imam Ahmed, about 5,000 or more. 5,000 or more. 500 of them were writing the hadith, or baqoon, and the rest of them were just learning husn adab al-samt. يتعلمون منهم حسن أدب والسمت. They're just learning good manners and behavior from him. So imagine a group, 500 is writing, the other 5 is just observing. Why? To see Ahmed's behavior and what he's doing, what he's not doing. That has a great impact on the student, but also to know, right, how to become like the people of knowledge. Another Shaykh he mentions, a biography, and then he mentions another Imam, Abu Bakr al-Mutawwi'i, he says that I visited Abu Abdullah, يعني Imam Ahmed, 12 سنة for 12 years. I used to come back and forth visiting him. وهو يقرأ المسند. He used to read the Musnad على أولاده, upon his children. فما كتبت عنه حديثا واحدا. I never wrote a single hadith from him. إنما كنت أنظر إلى هديه وأخلاقه. I only came to look at his akhlaq and his manners. His character, his manners. Right? Imagine 12 years. He's not writing any hadith. So obviously the Sheikh's showing us that at the time of Salaf, that's how they gained the adab. They would come to the class, they would see the Shaykh, they would look at his, just how the Sahaba did from Rasulullah. They'll take what he's saying, they're looking at what he's doing, all those incidences we see. But today's time, we also have a lot of those things written down for us. Hence, the book like the Sheikh's writing here, he gathering the different ways the ulama used to behave. So even if someone say, I can't see them, or they passed away, well, here's how they used to be, just in case we're not able to reach them or we didn't know. And he says now, with this being said, Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala, he said, Al-Imam al-Rabbani, the Imam al-Rabbani. And this word Rabbani has many ways to translate it, but you could say it's the godly or divine scholar, or better, nurturing Imam. Right? We're going to see what words Rabbani come from. هو الذي يعلم الناس صغار علم قبل كباره. The scholar who's referred to as Rabbani is the one who teaches the people صغار علم, the small amounts of knowledge, قبل كباره, before the big ones. So this word Rabbani, we know it's in the Quran. Allah says in the Quran, Surah Al-Imran, chapter 79, verse 79, ولكن كونوا ربانيين بما كنتم تعلمون الكتاب وبما كنتم تدرسون. So Allah says, be you Rabbaniyun, learn men of knowledge who practice what they know and preach also to others, because of what you're teaching the book and what you study. So we see Rabbani, Allah describes their sifat, تعلمون الكتاب, they teach it, وما كنتم تدرسون, and they studying it. So some of the ulama, when they looked at this word, and this is mentioned in Imam Bukhari, Ibn Abbas narrated this statement, Al-Bukhari mentions in his Sahih this statement of Ibn Abbas. And the ulama, they discussed the word Rabbani. Shaykh Ibn Uthaymin, he sharah al-Bukhari, he says Rabbani, it was said amongst different meanings, الذي هو الجامع, is the one who gathers بين التعليم والتربية. He gathered between and teaching and nurturing. Because a Rabbani scholar, he practices, he has the knowledge, he practices it. Then what does he do for a student? He nurtures him. How? By the smaller knowledge to the bigger. He doesn't just jump and give him the bigger knowledge. Hafiz ibn Hajar Fath al-Bari writes, المراد بصغار علم ما وضح من مسائله. That which is clear-cut, clear knowledge. No difficulty. And that which is كباره, the difficult knowledge, a big one, ما دق منها. That which is difficult of it. So the ilm we can see now as levels. That which is clear-cut, easy, that which is harder. You could say, in other words, beginner and advanced, intermediate, advanced. So the scholar who's Rabbani, he doesn't teach people the big books. Right? That's a mistake. You have to start from the Bagaram. That's what you notice when we teach. Everyone's going all the way to Arba'at, Thalath, upwards with Tawheed, and you go from. That's how you do it. Arba'in, you go up. You're not Sahih Bukhari. You're not going to get anything out of that. And if the teacher is doing that, then he's not being Rabbani. He's not helping you. He's helping himself. Maybe it's muraja for him, or fa'idah for him. For you, it wouldn't be anything. And so here we can see that the Rabbani scholar, the word Rabbani, Shaykh Muhammad Adam Ethiopia says Rabbani, it comes from the word Rabb. So therefore he's called Rabbani as a quality that his ilm that he knows is the knowledge of the Rabb, divine knowledge. إذا أرادوا تخصيصا بعلم رب means, so Rabbani is one who knows the knowledge of the Sharia. That's who he is. And the point of this, the Sheikh's highlighting, is that that's what the scholar is supposed to do. He's supposed to help the student go up in levels and nurture him. And part of nurturing is the tarbiyah and the akhlaq of the student, taking care of the akhlaq. So he says that the teacher, should teach through actions, words, and behavior. And the seeker of knowledge should be a role model in all his affairs. He should neither speak nor act except in guidance and with enlightenment. Huda wa ala nur. And this is the reality. If you become a talib ilm, then you have to be the best of the best. في أخلاق وفي أدب, because you're going to be the قدوة حسنة in Ummah. And all awam, that's all they're going to do. Lay people, when they see you practicing, learning deen, they're going to think this person is the role model. So if you misbehave, it's not going to be that, oh, this person misbehaved. No, it's going to be that Sharia allowed it, because the Ahl Ilm are doing it. Tulab Ilm are doing it. ليس لنا مثل السوء hadith. There's no bad example amongst us. So an example will be then the student of knowledge. Once he's doing talab, he has to purify himself, because he's going to be the role model, and therefore we have to be careful of those mistakes that we might have. Thus he says, we praise Allah We live in a time which there are many means have become available for a person to seek knowledge and seek and acquire it with ease and convenience. For example, a person amongst us can extract a hadith from 100 books in a matter of minutes. And this is the reality we live in today. With the technology we have, Maktaba Shamila, for example, most of the books available right there for someone just to research one mas'ala. And so the reality, then the Shaykh says, this is a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we have such things. But he says, but do we appreciate this blessing and truly understand it? That's the key. And the boundaries surround us. And this is what we have to understand. How do we really appreciate it? So he said, فَالْعَاقِل, the one who is intelligent and wise, he contemplates and he looks at the ni'am, the blessings of Allah which he has, and perhaps to be taken away. Perhaps to be taken away. Therefore, we do not lack references or scholars or time. All of this is available, readily available. Praise be to Allah. However, we need piety. We need piety, he says, and exert our best efforts to reap the rewards, the fruits of our efforts. And this is the advice of the adab. Because otherwise, in today's time, as we said, is the easiest period we're living in. Some ulama said today's time is the easiest time to become mujtahid. Everything's available. The only problem then is someone's in good intention, hard work, high ambitions. Right? This is why you may notice then, with all this available, it's also possible someone will not do anything with all of this, unless he takes the path, and that's why he's focusing on the adab. And so next point, he starts with the first of them, halaqatu ilm. The first adab is the halaqatu ilm, the circles of knowledge. And he says the circles of knowledge are tantashir fi biladina, he's talking about Saudi Arabia, are widespread. Right? And he says, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve it. And he says, and this is something where be among the people of knowledge, whether it be from them or by the esteemed sheikhs. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, he given us that, bi ahlul ilm sadiqeen, who run the classes, as well on top of them being obviously the honorable sheikhs. Means there's so many classes and so many halaqat. And these halaqat, he says, these circles and these sheikhs, one day will regret having neglected to attend their lessons. And I mentioned this after our ancestors, our salaf, they wrote expressed regret and remorse when they missed the ability to meet a contemporary sheikh from whom they did not narrate or learn from. And this is the reality, that even the classes that we have here or anywhere else in the world, if someone just takes it for granted, that time will come where there will not be those classes anymore, or the teacher will disappear, or the sheikh will pass away. And we're seeing already in front of our eyes how many kibar ulama have passed away within our own lifetime, right? Within a couple last year or so. And so it's a reality that we have to take advantage of them while we have them. And he gives the example now. Al-Khatib Baghdadi, he writes in Kitab Rihla, the book of travel, and he mentions the chapter of the dhikr, right? The mention, من رحل إلى الشيخ, someone who traveled to a sheikh, يبتغي علو إسناده, he's trying to get the high chain of transmission from him. فمات قبل ظفر الطالب منهم ببلوغ مراده. And the sheikh died before the student was able to reach his goal. Means many of the salaf, they traveled to land to meet the sheikh, and the sheikh died before he got there. Right? So for them it was a calamity, right? It was a calamity. So he mentions one example from Abdullah ibn Amanim, Dawood, and Khuraybi. He said, the reason I entered Basra was to meet Ibn Aoun, rahimahullah, the great Imam of the Salaf. And when I reached the Qantara, the bridge of Bani Dara, he said, I was met with the news of Ibn Aoun's death. So he says, I traveled to meet him, and as soon as I got to the bridge area of Bani Dara, it was announced publicly that of his death. فَدَخَلَنِي مَا اللَّهُ بِهِ عَلِيمٌ. Allah only knows the kind of sadness that entered my heart. This narration is mentioned by Khatib and also Abu Nu'aym al-Hilya bi-isnad da'if. It has a weak chain. But the Sheikh's point is that there are many stories like that. Salaf who, they made big efforts to reach and they couldn't find the Sheikh. For example, Alamat al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah, Imam al-Shafi'i, why he went to Egypt to meet Al-Layth ibn Sa'ad. When he got there, Al-Layth passed away. Right? So it's not only them, there's so many of them of that. And the Sheikh's giving these examples to show that how eager they were not to miss the opportunity. Right? And this is why today we have to be even more eager because it's even easier for us. He says, look, take a look that at the regret of these imams. He didn't lose this imam, he didn't lose financial fortune, he didn't lose a building. He only lost something that he could only replace with something similar or better than it, knowledge. And for those reasons, said a group of Salaf, right, when they passed away, some witnessed the Sheikh's funeral, and some of them while in the throes of their death, and some while they buried him in the ground after his death, and they were lamented, bite their fingers out of remorse for the loss. And if we live long enough, we may encounter generations who will blame us for our neglecting of learning. For some of our scholars who lived long and possessed vast knowledge. He's talking about his own self. And this is the point he's trying to highlight. Even himself in his time, as a shuyukh and many, if we don't, we'll be blamed for not having enough knowledge when the shuyukh passed away, we didn't take advantage of them. So he says, therefore, the seeker of knowledge must take advantage of the lives of scholars and draw from their sources before the inevitable happens, which comes in the hadith Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah la yaqbidu al-ilma intiza'an yantazi'u min ibad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't take away the knowledge by stripping it from the sudur al-ibad, from the chest of the scholars, wherever it takes the knowledge بقبض العلماء, by death of the ulama. حتى إذا لن يبقى عالما until there is no scholar left, يتخذ الناس رؤوسا جهالا, people take ignorant people as scholars, and they will ask them and they will give verdicts بغير علم فضلوا أضلوا, and they will misguide themselves and others. Hadith Bukhari and Muslim others. So here the Shaykh taking the first advice that we should take advantage of the classes. And in our context is that all the classes that we have to make a schedule, attend them as much as we can. Before a time will come, there's no class. And we're in dire need of knowledge, and no one knows, or very little people know. And this is how the student knowledge should think about his aim. He's not coming to class just for the passing of time, or just for the hasanat of hudur. He's talib ilm, he's a student of knowledge. So a student of knowledge is different than a person who's just a lay person. For the lay person comes to their class, the most of what he gets is the reward for attendance. For the student, what he's getting, that's the least of what he's intending to get. The highest what he needs is knowledge he's trying to get, because he has to go back and teach the people. So this is how we should think about it, because what happens later when someone needs the answer or the question you don't know, when no one knows, and you had the chance to know, you didn't do. Well, that's the point. So sometimes what happens is also we see here, some will say, I'll come next time, there's so many classes, there's an opportunity. And he gives the example of, Imam Dhahabi mentions the example of in the biography of Ishaq ibn Furat, where he says, أن ثلاثة من العلماء ماتوا في وقت واحد. 3 scholars died at one time. So these scholars, Imam Dhahabi says, مثل هؤلاء ثلاثة, Ishaq ibn Furat, and those died at the same time as him. إذا خلت منهم مدينة, the whole city was empty without them. في عام واحد, one city, فقد بان عليه نقص. That shows you how deficient, an evident deficiency that occurs in that city. And it happened like that. And today's time we see it, right? One after the other, the ulama, they are passing. So he says, if a person, فإن في وجود عالم, عفوا, varied in the existence of a scholar is حياة القلوب قبل الأبدان, is the life of the heart before the life of the body. وحياة القلوب أعظم من حياة الأبدان. Right? And the life of the heart is greater than the life of the body. ورحمه الله شيخ الإسلام عندما قال, may Allah have mercy upon Shaykh al-Islam Timi when he said, الرسالة ضرورية للعباد. The message, and divine message, is a necessity upon the servants. لا بد لهم منها. It's necessary that they have it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave it to us, and He sent to us with the messenger, right? وحاجتهم إليها فوق حاجتهم إلى كل شيء. And the need for the people for the message, the revelation, is greater than their need for everything. والرسالة الروح العالم, روح العالم ونوره وحياته. And this message is the life of the world, and its light, and its life. And its life. And this is the importance of it. And then he says, فأي صلاح للعالم إذا عدم الروح والحياة والنور. And what kind of rectification would the world have if there's no soul, and there's no life, and there's no light? والدنيا مظلمة, the dunya is dark, ملعونة, cursed, إلا ما طلعت عليه الشمس الرسالة, except if the sun of revelation shines on it. Well, that's a beautiful statement, Majmu' Fatawa, volume 19, page 93. And this is the reality of ilm, that we need more than we need food and drink. So same way we go to work, the same way we go out to earn, the classes are necessities, lifelines. It's not optional, it's unnecessary. And for some people, the ilm that they're learning is ilm wajib. Knowledge they're learning is ilm wajib. Fard aini, my individual obligation. So you're not even allowed to miss the classes. And that's because the knowledge you learn there, if you don't know it, you're mas'ul yawm al-qiyamah, in big trouble. So sometimes what happens, even the classes, some people, they even forget the ruling on it. What's the hukum on the coming to the class? Depends on the ilm you're learning. Some is fard kifai, it's the obligation, it's communal, and some is fard aini, individual. So for a beginner, it's fard aini. He's learning tawheed, aqeedah, tahara, salah, you can't miss the class, not allowed. For some people learning how to read the Quran, if you don't know how to read the Quran, you could jeopardize your Fatiha. So for some people, they're sitting there, I'm not coming. Why are you not coming? You're mas'ul, you're sitting in your home. Allah's going to ask you, what are you doing there? And some will say, fard kifaya, I already know. طيب, then why are you not holding responsibility to ummah? So either way you look at it, you're in trouble if you're not attending. There's nobody who's going to say, I don't need. But you see, brothers and sisters, the reality we have today, who's coming to come if everybody's making excuses? Who's going to benefit? And then the whole city will be blameworthy. Until some of the ulama, like Imam Shafi'i, held the view, is not even allowed to live in a city and there's no alim, there's no scholar or people of knowledge, not even allowed to live there. So then sometimes the situation becomes like this, right? There's a place, some cities we pass by, there's no daras. It's not a single class. Allah musta'an. So if someone starts the class, they pack it. And then when they come back to the regular class, then we find empty. It's the opposite, right? Sometimes you find that problem. So we must also appreciate what we have, because tomorrow you're going to be the one doing the same. And it's a great benefit, because Saudi Arabia has the same issue that he's mentioning, because they have so many classes, so many dawrat, so many seminars, so many ulama. Yet the people, they're missing here and there, and they're just falling short, and they're taking it lightly. And then he mentions some nice statements. The Shaykh continues, and he mentions some nice abiyat that's attributed to one of the scholars, Abdullah Shafi'i al-Maraghi. He quoted these lines criticizing some people who fell short to come to the classes. And so he says, and it's also these abiyat were mentioned by Al-Sam'ani and also Ibn Muflih in Adab Shar'iyya. إذا رأيت الشباب الحي قد نشأوا لا يحملون قلال الحبر والورقة. He said, if you see the men of the neighborhood growing up, they don't carry the ink pots or the paper. ولا تراهم لدي الأشياخ في حلق يعون من صالح الأخبار ما اتسقا. And he's saying you don't see them in circles with the elder shuyukh learning with righteous reports and what is consistent with therein. فعد عنهم ودعهم إنهم همج قد بدلوا بعلو الهم الحمقى. He said, then leave these people alone. So they become wild savages who have exchanged high ambition for foolishness. And this is a reality. And many people, you find that even their young age, they have the opportunity and time, and they're not taking advantage of it, thinking that either I'll catch it later, or I'm not responsible, or why would someone ask me? Right? These are all the questions people have. But what about Ibn Abbas? I mentioned his story many times. How did he become so knowledgeable? There's a long story in the Sunan Darimi, when he was going to seek knowledge, and his friend, he met him, and he told him, where are you going, Ibn Abbas? Who would need you? All the Kibar Sahaba are alive. Why would they need us? Ibn Abbas fataraka. He left him and he went. And that's how you're supposed to be. If someone's telling you, oh, you go to class, we can listen online. Just say, Assalamu alaikum, off you go. And that guy is going to be listening for the rest of his life. You want to be learning, you don't kind of sit with those kind of people, because what are they going to do? They're going to bring you down. But imagine, Ibn Abbas became an alim, that one said he was smarter. Then later on, the Ansari said Ibn Abbas was more intelligent. But also we find that sometimes what happens is the mas'uliyah, the responsibility, people don't feel it. And I'll finish at this point. If someone says, well, why am I learning anyways? To practice knowledge, teach it to your family and friends, to act, to call da'wah to it, and later on become a teacher, to teach others, to become a da'iyah. And if someone doesn't think this way, then eventually he's just going to have a low ambition. And some of the Salaf, they will narrate to the students, if you go to Kitab al-Ilm al-Khaythama, they mention, for example, some of the Salaf, they will narrate to the students, young kids, Masail al-Talaq and issue of divorce, Ahkam al-Talaq, and they're not married, nor they're divorcing anybody. Why? Because why? I say, because you're going to need it. Someone's going to ask you. And that's how we should think. If I'm sitting in the class, I have to make sure I know it, because someone's going to ask me, and billahi alaykum, they're going to ask you, if they haven't already asked you. So what's the worst? Then someone will say, I went to the class, I don't know. So what are you doing there if you don't know? Is it going to be that I was there but I forgot? How many times are you going to forget? But the more important, if you're coming, then you're benefiting. What's going to happen? You come with the class with that goal. Every time you learn something, it's going to be more than just for your own self. So this will also encourage us to try the best to take advantage of what we have. And like we said, then the Shaykh will talk about more, that these opportunities that we're looking for, we can't take it lightly. Ibn Hazm, rahimahullah, he does mention also in his kitab, Akhlaq Wasir, that his life experience showed that seldom is opportunity arrive that it is ever returns. The opportunity, once it arises, it seldom does it happen again. It means if someone doesn't seize the opportunity to have, it's not going to happen again. It means if you're free of time now, you can come, don't say tomorrow, because you might never come again. The same way, if you have a class, an opportunity, someone will teach you take advantage of it. For a time will come, there will be no teacher, nor do you have the ambition to learn. So this inshallah encourage us. Barakallahu feekum. Subhanaka bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik.